curiosity and an open mind, the underpinning to selling, right?
Welcome to Insights into Success. We're with your host Paul Dodds. We hope to educate, inspire and motivate you to achieve your own personal success. We talk to guests from all around the world from a variety of walks of life to hear the realities of their own journey to success. What challenges have they faced? How have they coped with failure? And what have been the keys or will be the keys to their own success? In our Read to Succeed interviews, we talk books that have inspired our guests, and for some, they share their secrets to marketing success. Join us as we give you insights into success.
Welcome to Insights into Success, where today our special guest, and coming back for a second time, we obviously haven't scared him off completely, is Nick Rowney. And today we're going to talk about something different. We're going to talk about sales. Now, Nick has had an incredibly colourful life, and one thing that's featured quite heavily in it is sales. So I'm really looking forward to you, Nick, sharing some wisdom with us from your sales experience. And if you could kick it off by telling us, how important is the skill of selling in life in general?
Well, of course, it should be taught at every school, right? Every primary school. Look, everything from getting a job to finding someone to come and do some work for you, through to just getting a partner in life. I mean, how do you sell yourself to somebody that has integrity? And people have got a surprisingly good bullshit meter, and often people are brought up to let their instinct go, but it's in there real deep in all of us. And even if people get the wool pulled over their eyes, you speak to most of them and they go, "Oh, I had a gut feeling." So the whole point is we need to understand that in order for anything to happen in our lives, selling is what we do. And children, I've got a little course called Sell Like a Baby, and literally the point is that babies cannot communicate with us in a sophisticated manner. They don't have any language. They can't use sign. And basically they're just a little sausage with arms and legs and big gooey eyes. And somehow there becomes a rapport between an attentive parent and a child, in which a child can get its needs met and understood, where the rest of us are just, at a bit of a loss. In fact, when it gets to that interesting age where children are just trying to understand and form words, and they have these bizarre little noises that come out of their mouths, and their parents are going, "Oh yeah, okay, they want this," and you go, how on earth how do you know that? And well, of course they know that, because it's a language that's developed between them. And right at that critical point, from when the baby needs to be changed or kept warm or be fed, it's constantly engaging with those around it in order for those signals to be sent out there. And it's not till we get to school, or we get parents who beat it out of us at a young age, you're just being cheeky or whatever. We kill that ability for most people to actually enjoy selling. It becomes fearful. You speak to most people, they hate. I used to run a business where I would get engaged by people to help them make contacts. And they'd all say to me, "Look, once I sit in front of a client or a prospective client, I'm away laughing. Look, I understand my product well. I love it. I'm passionate about it. I understand the market, and I'm curious as to how it might be able to benefit you." Wow. Curiosity and an open mind, the underpinning to selling, right? Yeah. And because no one actually cares about what you think, Paul. So I used to advise startup companies how to pitch to investors. Ooh, now that's selling at its utmost, right? I mean, that's a kind of level die situation. And I used to say to them, "Look, you know what? I know you love your product, and I know you think it's going to change the world and make it a better place. But the person you're going to sit in front of, they don't give a stuff about your product. And what they want to know is if it hits the fan, are you, Paul, going to turn up tomorrow and make it better? And if I look at you and I go, you know what? The product's great, but you know what, Paul? He's a little bit flaky, and I've got a feeling that he may well turn and run if this turns bad. Then you'll never get the investment. And you'll never get the investment, not because you didn't have a good product, but because you didn't sell yourself, the greatest product that sits out there. So yes, selling is absolutely everything in life.
So I've got a couple of questions there, and you've just got onto the whole raising capital, which I want to talk about too. But taking a step back, why do you think it is that society, as much as you and I can definitely agree that sales is part of everything in life, why the heck, as a society, don't we recognize that and put more emphasis into helping people develop their skills in that regard? And like you said, maybe including it in the school curriculum. Why is that?
Fear. Fear, because people fear people with the ability, silver tongue, they used to call it in my day. Oh, he's got the gift of the gab, that one. Oh, he'll pull one over me and I'll lose everything I've got. And that kind of mentality has gone from our parents, all the way through our Western society, where we believe we're not smart enough and someone with a good gift of the gab is therefore smarter than us. And so we're fearful. This person's going to talk us into something we don't want. And I got to be honest, there's a lot of people out there do that. I used to sell vacuum cleaners door to door, and trust me, people hate you. I don't need another vacuum cleaner. Mine's good. That's very true. You don't need another one, and yours is good. So how does my conversation start now? If I don't want to say, no, actually, we out in the truck here, we've got a vacuum cleaner suction and dust eradication system, and we're going to test your vacuum cleaner free of charge. You know what? So let's just take it out now and let's just test it to see if your vacuum cleaner actually is as good as you think. All right. Now, I don't even get to that stage, even if I had a thing out in the truck that did test your vacuum cleaner, which of course I don't. The only way I'm going to test your vacuum cleaner against mine is I'm going to throw some stuff on the ground, and then I'm going to use your vacuum cleaner to suck it up and test how much is in the bag. And then I'm going to use mine to do the same, and let's see how much is in there. And if mine's got more than yours, even better. So we're very fearful of people talking us into something we don't want. And so that stops us at that point. And, let's face it, the least trusted people in the world are salespeople, car salespeople, insurance people, double glazing people. Doesn't matter where you are in the world. That's where it starts.
So do you think, though, that that some salespeople give the whole sales skill a bad rap because they are focused on a short-term deal, getting a deal now, as opposed to the bigger picture, longer term, and really building a foundation for, ongoing sales? Is that part of the problem?
What a good question, eh? How long is a piece of string? Listen, yes, you're right. Most people in business, and obviously I tend to work at the smaller scale of businesses, and by choice rather than by necessity, because what happens is, if I had a business partner in Canada who gave up his job as vice president of sales for the Foot Locker in Canada.
Wow.
And came and took on my product and built a company for it.
Yeah.
And he used to say to me, God, I'm surprised. I used to go around to all these events, and when I was at Foot Locker, everybody knew me. They'd all bloody buy me lunch, or we'd all go out for a beer afterwards and have a laugh. And he said, I turn up to those same counters, to the same people that I've been talking to for years, and I go, hey, listen, I've left the Foot Locker, and I've got this amazing little product. And he said that also to me. Wow, that's a great product. How many have you sold? So They didn't want to be first, even though
Yeah.
they knew this guy and trusted him. So the beauty of having a large company behind you, like a Spark or a Vodafone or a, Coca-Cola,
Yeah.
that kind of selling isn't really selling, right? It's just simply order taking, because
Absolutely.
the selling's all done by the billion-dollar advertising industry that sits behind it,
Yeah.
Whereas you and I have to go out and we have to sell something today, because without that urgency, we die. We need money. We need you to love us. We need you to trust us. Paul, how can I get you to trust me today?
Yeah.
Well, I can't, can I? The only way I could get you to trust me is if I was to say to you, Paul, your best friend just called you and they said, you know what? I've used Nick and he was amazing. I mean, seriously, knocked it out of the park. And he's well worth talking to. You would at least give me 10 minutes of your time with an open and curious mind.
Absolutely.
So my job's half done. So that's why you get all these books out about how to convert your clients into your salespeople and things like to make them your there used to be this evangelist thing where your clients became your evangelists, and all you needed to do was to get everybody to love you, and they'd do your selling for you.
Yeah.
And there is a logic behind that. Of course, you've got to be able to back it up once you step out. And the problem today with that on the internet, where we have influencers, is that they are simply mouthpieces and they are whores to the highest bidder. They don't know any of the people who they pretend to represent. They're simply a paid sponsor. And so once again, we become distrustful of people in front of us, even if we like them, even if it's a sports person who goes, hey, listen, drink a can of this Kool-Aid because, it makes your gym effort, bounce back, and it's got so many electrolytes that, you're going to be popping, and, your lactic acid's going to immediately disappear. And all of those good things we want to hear. And we tend to go, wow, if they say that, well, it's probably worth a risk, right? So your answer and your question are really, how much effort is required in order for somebody to say, you know what, I'm prepared to give it a go, but not for free. I'm prepared to give it a go, and I'm prepared to sell it. Because you know what? There's a million people out there who go, you know what, that sounds like a great idea. Give us one and I'll give it a crack. And we'd all go broke doing that, Paul.
Yeah. And do you think, obviously with, the proliferation of influencers and, how so much has gone online, that they've really muddied the waters in terms of sales, and that people are kind of been a bit burnt and now a bit circumspect about those sort of offerings online these days?
Oh, yeah. You imagine if your business requires you to work in a call center and sell something. And I mean, you might work for pardon me, you might work for the World Wildlife Fund or the Cancer Society or, the blind. I mean, you could be working for a genuinely, decent and honorable organization that does good in the world. Yeah. And you pick up the phone and you go, hi, it's Paul here from, the blind. And I'd like to talk to you today, if you have time. Is this a convenient time? Because time is your currency and my currency, right? Nothing worse than someone calling us and immediately launching into a spiel without, first of all, acknowledging that we're actually giving them our time, and our time's precious. And I don't care if I'm sitting there watching the racing on TV. Hey, you're interrupting my life, and so an acknowledgement of that is critical. Before you even open your mouth to tell me something else, acknowledge that I'm here and thank you. Is this a convenient time to talk?
And I'll just interrupt there because that sort of segues into my next question, which is, what are some of the common mistakes people make in sales? And what you've just said, I totally agree with, is that one mistake people make is they disrespect the people they're ringing, their time. and don't acknowledge that they want to take up a little bit of their time. So what other mistakes do people typically make, you see?
Oh, there's 1,000 of them. I mean, the next classic is to go, listen, I see that you used to very kindly give us a donation, 17 years ago, and I was just wondering, was there any really particular reason why you stopped? Yeah, well, I'm retired now. Oh, that's interesting. And then they start into a spiel that they've got on a piece of paper next to them about why the hell you should be interested in giving them to them today. Because you know what? They're not paid to listen to you. They're paid to tell you something. Because the people they work for have no understanding of what selling is. They believe, look, when I was in my 20s, 1975, I think it was, I answered an advert, and it was for, selling cladding on the outside of buildings. But they didn't say that. They just said, do you want to earn $750 a week? Which was an enormous amount of money in 1975. And I went, oh, yes, I certainly do. So I turned up, and there were these two lovely Maori gentlemen people, man. And they said, look, we're Mormons, and let us tell you about the Mormons. We know, statistically speaking, that for every 1,000 doors we knock on, we'll get one convert.
Yeah.
And if we don't get one convert in the 1,000 doors, then statistically speaking, we'll get 2 in the next 1,000. And if we don't get 2 in the next 1,000, statistically speaking, we'll get 3 in the next 1,000.
Yeah.
How does that make you feel? And most people went, yeah, that ain't my idea of a good time. So they said, probably best if you leave now. And so half the group of people were there, left straight away. They couldn't get their mind around the fact that not everybody was going to welcome you in with open arms. And if I was to say to you, listen, the likelihood of you getting 1%, because everybody says the same thing, Paul. They say, look, the marketplace for this particular product in Auckland is 27,000 businesses. And if I got 10%, that's 2,700 businesses. Yeah. And if I got 1%, that's 270 businesses. And if I had 270 businesses that bought my product on a monthly basis, that would be a good start. I could keep the doors open. And then getting back to your first question a couple of questions ago, if I have enough people buying my product that I don't have to worry about keeping the lights on and keeping the business running, it allows me the luxury of taking more time to develop a relationship with the next group of people. Now, that group of people may well be bringing the people who have just come on board up to the next level, which ironically is the freemium premium model that IT companies really got into in a big way, because they went, well, if I get people to start using the product, start using whatever it is, the website, I can then move them to the next level where they're prepared to pay for whatever it is, the add-ons, right? Yeah. Now, that's true. That's true. But then I was a very early adopter in New Zealand of LinkedIn. And then LinkedIn did a terrible thing. They took away all my ability to access people how I normally had, which was directly. And I mean, I direct chat, CEOs of large organizations, bang, straight off the cuff. And they removed that from me, and they made that part of their goal plan. So suddenly they took away what they gave me, and then they repackaged it and said, now you're going to pay for it. And I went, screw you. I'll never pay you for that. You've broken my trust. I don't mind if you charge the next person who hadn't been there from the start to pay for it. Fine. Because for them, that's how the game is. It's like going back to your provider of your phone and going, oh, I'm going to go to another phone provider. And they go, oh, Nick, why are you doing that? You go, well, and they go, hang on a minute. And they look through and they go, oh, my God, you're on that plan. That plan for 4 years. Boy, have we got a deal for you. And I go, you know what? Why didn't you offer me that when that deal came out? Well, because Nick, we're still screwing you for the last plan. So right at that moment, I'm going to go, bugger you. I've got a different opportunity. I'm going to take it. And so when you get back to selling, why don't I trust salespeople? Because you know what? When a better sale deal comes along, they never call me and tell me.
Yeah, that is so true. And like you said, it really just undermines the whole trust. It's like very, very revealing as to what they're really about and how much they really appreciate you as a long-standing client when they won't pass on that benefit to you.
That's right. So, the questions that you ask, ironically, are so often answered in a myriad of ways in our daily life that if we stop to put them into a sales perspective, it would give us cause to go, you know what? All I've got to do to be a great salesperson is none of the above. First I've got to do is recognize that, hey, this is Paul's life I'm interrupting, and I better damn well have something of value to him to do that, and I better respect it. And you know what? If Paul says to me, I'm not interested, then I need to leave him and thank him for his time, even if it's only for him to reject me. Because you know what? He'll respect me more.
Yeah.
The web companies I used to work for, we had a sort of a selection of clients that fitted into what our niche market were. We were an agile, open source. We were in the cool spectre, and pretty difficult to get a large government organization like, ACC to suddenly want to embrace us. So we knew who our market was. And we also knew that small people with $2,500 to get a website, they were no use to us either. Because the irony about small people, and when I say small people, I mean, it doesn't matter the scale of your business, the size of your business. It matters how you view the amount of money you're prepared to pay to get a set of goods, right? And so the internet's a kind of moving feast, and nobody really knows where they sit on that scale. So to have the courage and the confidence to put 10% of your company's yearly income into building a website with no guaranteed outcome is, to a lot of companies, too big, let alone putting 15%. So they tend to go on the, we'll just pay for the minimum viable product, right? Which is fine, if you're getting it for free off the internet and it comes with a domain name for $35 a month. You go, okay, well, I'm willing to take that risk, right? Yeah. But when you're a company developing websites for people, the last thing you want is a customer to whom the amount of money you're charging is a huge amount in their mind, because the first thing they're going to do is want to question you for every single thing that you're doing, because of their fear and mistrust and lack of understanding. And so they become the customer from the nightmare from hell. So, there's a business adage that you always want to lose the bottom 10% of your client base every year, because they're the people who are going to take up 80% of your time for 20% of your revenue, right?
And do you think that that's another one of the mistakes that people make in sales is they think every sale is a good sale and some sales are actually bad sales?
Yeah, of course they do. And if you work for telecom, you know what? You're right, because you're going to get paid at the end of the month for all the converts that you've had, and it doesn't matter whether they stay with the company for 10 days, 10 weeks, or 10 years. You've got your commission, and you're on to the next mother. Whereas you and I, hey, when Paul becomes my client, I better damn well look after him, because if Paul decides to go next month, I've lost that revenue stream.
Yeah.
Oh, dear. So the answer there is most definitely. Yeah.
So what other mistakes you commonly see? So we've identified not respecting their time, not listening to them, thinking that all sales are good sales. What are some other things that come to mind?
Fear of giving them the truth. So we don't tell a potential client or a potential customer or whatever the truth, right? We tell them what we think they want to hear, okay?
Yeah.
And then we kind of move whatever kind of a spiel we have, be it on a piece of paper or in our heads, to kind of fit that, deal. Yeah, well, Paul, I've heard what you say you want, and we can help you there, right? And, obviously, we may not be able to do everything you want, but hey, it doesn't matter who you go to. The bigger client you go to, the more they'll tell you they can do what you want, but the less they can do it because, they're actually more locked into a system than we are. So blah, 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 right? But the real truth is, Paul, is, you know what, Paul? I'd love to help you, but actually you don't fit sort of our customer sweet spot. And it would be disingenuous of me to actually take your money, because at the end you'd be unhappy, and that does my reputation no good. So what I'd rather do, Paul, is I'd rather introduce you to somebody who you can trust and who actually works in your space, and they will, for your price, give you what you want. Would that be of any value to you?
Yeah, and that immediately gives credibility.
How many people do you think that happens with? My boss used to say to me, how many potential clients have you given to the opposition? And I'd go, well, probably every second or every third one. Why? And he'd go, we'll go broke if you do that. I go, you're crazy. You don't want these customers. You told me what the sweet spot is. We won't go bust. We'll actually stay afloat because we won't be trying to make these people happy for no money.
Yeah.
And so that's something that salespeople need to understand is that it's actually more valuable to give a client to somebody else than it is to keep it for themselves. And the long game, which is what you talked about before, how does that strike against the short-term game to the long game? We've gone back in a loop, because the long game is all about reputation, and reputation is all about trust, and trust is all about people's experiences with us. And you know what? If I put you on to somebody else and they give you a fantastic deal, I've got your trust. Wow. And it's cost me nothing. It's cost me nothing, because I didn't want you for a client, not because I don't like you, but because we're not a good fit.
Yeah.
And so you now go out and you go, you know what, that guy, Nick, he really was helpful. And then when you're speaking to somebody else, you go, actually, I know someone you might like to talk to about this. We didn't work with him, but he really gave me some good advice. So if you talk to him, he will give you some honest advice. How much do you think honest advice is in the currency of sales, Paul? How much do you think it's worth?
That's huge, isn't it?
And how often do you think salespeople are told to give honest advice?
Probably in a lot of cases, seldom.
If at all.
Yeah.
So there's another one to add to your, what don't we teach salespeople? We don't teach them to be honest.
So, okay, so you touched on it before, and I'm just wondering what your view on this is. Like, if you're starting out, you're saying about, your own little business, so every sale in the initial stages is critical to get your sort of your inertia, get to that sort of point where you're taking over.
Yeah.
How do you deal with that? Because like you said, once you've got, an income stream that sort of supports you, then you can kind of chill out a little bit and really work on the long-term building relationships. But when you're in the early stages, your situation's vulnerable, how do you achieve, a quality relationship with a new client when in the back of your mind you're thinking, I've got to make this sale, because if I don't, we might be closing the doors at the end of the week?
So, you're not going to like my answer here, Paul. My answer is, first of all, you have to overcome your fear of failure.
Right.
Because how you pitch that to me is how we all think. We all think the moment we say no to somebody, they'll never return as a customer. Yeah. And that may or may not well be true. But You know, one of those companies that I told you about that as a web developer I gave to somebody else?
Yeah.
A year or so later, we were in a very, very hard time because the web world was taking a real pounding and small web companies were really up against, some major changes in the industry. And we were simply getting priced out of the market. And one of those people that I passed on to somebody else called me, and they said, we've had a client walk in the door and they're actually too big for us. We'd love to be able to help them, but in all honesty, we can't.
Yeah.
And I thought maybe you might like to talk to them because they sound like they probably just about fit into what you guys are doing.
Yeah.
And right then and there, we picked up a major client and a major job at no expense, with no input from us to them, and it all coming back based on this company going, you know what, you might like to talk to these guys. And for us, that was them having the same integrity. And that is a marriage made in heaven, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. And that kind of comes to my next point, I guess, is in sales, should you be thinking short term or long term? So there's an example of playing the long term game and the benefit from doing that.
Well, no, it wasn't, because I had no ulterior motive,
right,
other than the customer's well-being. So often people pay for a website and I'd have to say to them, you might be paying for this, but this is actually for your customers. So I don't care what you think. I have no interest in what you think. What I'm concerned about is how will your customers view this? And if you can't get that through your head, that, you know what, you're simply paying for somebody else's experience, then we can't work together because you don't understand what a website is. Oh, okay, that's pretty harsh. Yes, but that's the truth.
Yeah.
So my definition of selling is simply the marriage between offering and opportunity. That's it. The salesperson is the marriage person. They simply go, oh, you're an opportunity and I'm an offering. And what I offer is going to help you in this opportunity. And if it doesn't, respect the person in front of you and get somebody else to marry them, because it's not going to be a successful marriage. And so you always generally become the translator between the business and the client. That's a salesperson's role. They're a translator. Oh, Paul, you've got this problem, and I work for this company that can probably help you. And this is how you two might work together. What do you think? Does it require a demonstration, Paul? Will I need to come round to your house and put this blanket round your hot water system just to show you the difference in your power bills? Because you know what? I'll be round tomorrow with the blanket. Yeah. Or does it require me giving you 17 other people to make you feel safe and secure that dealing with me is a no-risk situation? Because I can do that if you like. It's probably of little value to you, because unless these people are people you know and respect, I could have just simply paid them to say that. So that's really not going to help you. I can do it, but it won't help you.
Yeah.
So I need to convince you today that you can trust me. And that's an impossible thing to do. For the greatest, because if I can, I'm conning you. Do you understand that, Paul? I'm conning you. You understand that, Paul? I'm conning you. Hey, listen, I might come across as a really nice guy, and you may have bought into what I've been selling you for the last 3/4 of an hour, half an hour. But you know what? I could be conning you. So tell me, Paul, what makes you think that what I've actually said to you is of some value and indeed the truth? Tell me, what do you think it is?
That would be an interesting question to answer depending on the
Well, I'm asking
circumstance,
you.
wouldn't it? Pardon?
I'm asking you. You're my customer. I'm
Okay.
asking you the question.
Well, from what you've told me, it sounds like it potentially will resolve the problem that we've got. And from dealing with you today, you seem like you're a fairly above board kind of guy. So at this
Is that a
stage,
is that a gut instinct?
that is a gut instinct based on my experience with you so far. And one of the
Yes.
things I like, Nick, is I like to buy from people that I like. That's important to me.
Yep.
And I like you. So you're definitely getting down the track. I'd like to know a bit more before I absolutely seal the deal, but I'm definitely interested. You got my attention.
Thank you. And I appreciate your attention because I realize that I'm taking you away from something else. And that may be you closing a major deal that you don't even know you've got. But until you take the phone and you call back that person who just called you, you'll never know. So I do appreciate that potentially you are not talking to somebody more valuable than me. So with that off the cards, what do I need to do to convince you that I'm going to actually offer some value to you today? Now, obviously, it's not going to be you're going to buy something from me because I'm not here to sell you something, but I am here to sell you something. I'm here to sell you the product that's called Nick Rowney. And so far, I'm not doing too badly. I've got your attention. Wow. I've got your curiosity and an open mind. Wow. I've got the fact that actually you and I resonate without me even. I haven't asked you one question yet, Paul. Imagine if I actually was selling you something.
Yeah.
This conversation would be totally reversed. And the first question I would say to you is, Paul, in the remaining time that we have, how can I help you go away from this conversation feeling like you have got something of real value rather than an interesting 20 minutes or half an hour or hour of your time? Because I don't want to take up your time, Paul. I appreciate you giving it to me, but I don't want to take it up. I want you to leave this conversation going, you know what? I want to call Nick again. And I want to keep calling this guy because you know what? Not only because I enjoy talking to him and he can tell a bit of a story and he's done a few things, so sometimes he can be funny and interesting. I want to call him because I got some specific questions and he's got a viewpoint that I value. And I value the viewpoint because it makes me think in a different direction. Now, that might be the opposite of how I normally think. He might challenge me to look at things from a brutally honest perspective that I don't actually want to visit because the answer might be no. The answer might be I'm wasting my time. These people are not my clients. I'm about to waste a whole lot of money that I don't need to. I don't know. So the only question that you can answer for me today, Paul, is how do you think in the remaining time we've got, I can add enough value to you to walk away from this having and saying to yourself, I want to keep doing with this because I really need this, enjoy this, want to do this. So that's my question to you. And then we'll see how my selling techniques go because you've asked me to sell you something.
Yeah. So one thing that comes up a lot is that people talk about how, they're comfortable talking to people about their products, etc., but the difficulty comes in the close. Very good at having a nice conversation, getting on really well, relating with the client. But when it comes down to the point of, well, are we going to do a deal here or not sort of thing, that's where they struggle. What's the secret to that where you can do it, but without feeling like you're being too salesy?
Hell, I wish I knew the answer to that. I'd be an exceedingly wealthy man, which I'm not, but I am rich. That's a different conversation. So, it's a very, very difficult. It's a very, very, very difficult question in that every single person that sits in front of us has a different concept of the same question. So if you're sitting in a room, let me just take you completely left of field. Are you okay with that?
Yeah, let's go for it.
One of my previous employers used to call me the hand grenade. And the reason being was that we'd go to a meeting and we might have a dozen people from the organization sitting around the boardroom, right?
Yeah.
And we'd be presenting our product, our ability to satisfy their need, to understand their demands, to be able to be curious enough to and courageous enough to tell them no halfway through somewhere, which is kind of the agile perspective. We've looked at this and guess what? This isn't working. We need to change, right?
Yeah.
And so my fairly abrupt and, black hat behavior is to go into a room full of strangers and say something that's mildly offensive. Because if I've got people like you, Paul, who are mildly in my corner, you won't be offended. You'll laugh. You'll go, oh, that was a bit cheeky, or you'll laugh and go, quietly, I totally agree with that. But I'm in this company with these people, I'm sure as hell not going to say that. These are my colleagues, and my reputation and my job depends on me keeping my mouth shut. So I'll just give you a quiet grin and say nothing. Right the way through to people who will immediately take great offense at what you've said. And in that one single instance, I have now identified my audience, right? So I know there's Paul and there's a couple of other people who gave me a grin, which told me, you know what? They're on my side.
Yeah.
And then there's the people in the middle who are like fence sitters. And hey, if they had the courage, they would have grinned as well. But they don't. But they're not offended by it. So they'll just sit on the fence and they'll stay sitting there, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So they're the fence sitters. And then the third group of people are the group of people who are offended, right? And they're outright offended. They let you know.
Sure.
They go to stand up and go, look, if this is what's going to go along, we don't actually want to work with you. Back down the range to only being slightly offended and just going, hey, look, I didn't appreciate that. All right. So out of the on your side, fence sitters and offended, who do you think your target market is?
It's got to be the ones on your side.
No,
you're going to say the ones that you're offended.
Correct. And so ironically, in your question of how do we go about the close, you have identified the reason why most people go for the wrong people to close. If you went to close the people who were on your side, you're wasting your time. It's called converting the converted, or preaching to the choir, or whatever you want. Right. What those people need is information, is involvement, is to be taken along the journey. So, hey, Paul, look, mate, I'm glad you love me. And you know what? What I'm going to do today is I'm going to sign you up. And with your permission, if I sign you up, you'll get our monthly newsletter, because I know your time's important. And don't you hate these people who send you a newsletter every bloody day or every week? They've got nothing to say. By the end of the week, they've said everything they learned in their life 3 times. All I want to do is put into the bloody email or the spam or disconnect. So I know your time's valuable. So with your permission, I'm going to send you an email once a month. And on that email is going to be something that I hope you will find relevant. And you know what? You're here now, and I just happened to have in my bag this. And you know what? I'd like you to try it. Not because I want you to buy it. More than that, Paul, I don't want you to buy it. Do you know why I value you? Because I think you'll give me an honest answer as to what you actually think its value is. And to me, that's worth more than a paltry sum that I can charge you. That is an honest opinion. And so, with your permission, I would like to give you this and get an honest opinion from you. Okay? So I've got you, and I've moved you to the side in conversation. I'm not going to spend any more time with you tonight. You've got my business card. You've got my product. And I've got your email address. You're gone. Yeah. The people sitting on the fence, oh, bugger me. How am I going to appeal to these people? They're kind of, yes, maybe, yes, no. If they're friends in the I love them viewpoint, go, yeah, you should do it. You should do it. They probably will. And I tell you what those people are in the sales cycle. They're the people that you convince when you're selling them some health insurance, which I used to sell door to door in the evening to pay for my addiction of startup companies, which was sending me broke. So I used to sell. And I used to use typical things like, you know what? I don't want you to buy from me tonight, but you know what? I'm not going to be here tomorrow. I'm not going to come back and see you if you change your mind and decide you want the product. I don't have time. I can't take the risk of you never coming back. So you know what? Here's all my truthful knowledge. Here's all my experience. Here's the reason why this product might work for you. You know what? But at the end of the day, this is a decision you need to make. And I'm not going to waste my time sitting here convincing you tonight, because tomorrow you're going to wake up and you're going to go, oh, why on earth did I let that guy talk me into that? You're going to have some hesitation. You're going to phone up the company and you're going to cancel it. And I just wasted all this time and pissed you off, because you know what? Now they don't trust me because they think I conned you into something. So I forget you as well, Paul. I go, you know what? Thanks very much. Here's all the information. Here's how this might be of some use to you, because I know nobody else will have told you this, because I'm actually giving you a truthful answer. I'm not trying to sell you something. I'm an advisor. I'm here to advise you. This is my advice. Great. If you phone up the company and go, hey, I was talking to Nick and we'd like to buy the product, I still get the money, right? Deal done. A little bit of a risk to me, but I've given you good information, so the trust thing comes through, and I didn't try and con you. Now we get to the last one, the close. Here we've got people who go, you know what? You're just like all the rest. You come here with your fancy words and your glossy brochure, and you convince me that, oh, yeah, I've got an ailment and that I never knew I had. And, the last person, I've still got this life insurance or health insurance and I'm paying for it. And I haven't got the faintest idea what it does. And basically, that was 4 years ago and it probably isn't even valuable anymore. And it won't cover me if I get something else. So, why would I want to spend my money with you? God, it's just more money for something else I won't understand. Go away. Thanks for your time, but I don't want to speak to you. Wow. Yeah. Man, I love you. You're the heckler in the room, Paul. I love the heckler. The heckler tells me, hey, look at me. I'm awake. The heckler goes, you know what? All the people in this room who hate this guy up on stage because he's not funny and we don't like him and we don't trust him and he's annoyed us, the heckler is their savior. And so immediately, all the people in the room who hate you when you're up there giving your grand tour, your grand speech, they're all on the heckler side. They're the people who hate you. So I don't have to. I've done quite a lot of public speaking, and I do say things to annoy people. And I do long for the heckler to go and say something really witty and smart and maybe even thoughtful back, bang. Thank you. Thank you for saying that. You don't say that, of course. But you know that he's sucked all that negative air out of the room and it's all hanging around him like a big ugly cloud. And so now through him, I can address all those people who hate me through one pinpoint. Woo! That's the person I need to convince, because you know what? He's the biggest bully in the room. And if I convince the biggest bully in the room to love me, my job is done, because all the other people who've gravitated around him, because he's the biggest and the bully in the room, they're going to go, Jesus, if this guy thinks he's all right, we must have missed a thing or two. Yeah. So in your close, always look for people who are going to challenge you the most. And you could be standing in a group full of prospective clients, right? So don't spend your time trying to be cool and witty to the people who love you. Don't spend your time trying to convince the people who are going to sit on the fence they'll never buy from me anyway because they'll change their mind tomorrow. Immediately turn to the people who don't like you, who've mumbled under their breath or outwardly challenged you on something you've said. Concentrate on them. And you know what? Find the chink in their armor. Find out what it is that they dislike you for. And it'll be a reason, Paul. And you know what? I guarantee you, 8 out of 10 times, it won't be what you're selling or who you are. The reason will be because you remind them of somebody they hate. An actor or a person down the road who ripped them off once, or their neighbor or their partner or their father, or Jesus, I don't know, a million people out there people hate, right? Sorry about wobbling the screen round. So find out. So tell me, Paul, in all of the things that I've said to you today, before we go, because we're going to have to go very soon, in all of the things that I've said to you today, has there been one thing in particular that you found grating or annoying or you don't agree with?
Yeah, look, to be honest, you get up my nose because you remind me of an old next door neighbour. I don't like brash people like you, so I don't like buying off people that I don't like.
Yeah. So that's a very fair question. If you wouldn't mind, could you tell me who do you like? Just so I can, so for a bit of feedback for me for later on. I realize that you're not going to buy from me, and
Yeah.
there's no conversation to be had here, but I want to learn. I also want to learn from this conversation. I want to take away some knowledge from you. So tell me, you've told me I'm brash,
Yeah.
that I remind you of somebody you dislike.
Yeah.
But could you make it a little more around maybe how I've gone about this conversation? That's where I'd get some real benefit.
Yeah, I think you just came into the room overly confident and made an inappropriate comment, and that just got my back up, really. So I wasn't really too interested in what you had to say after that because you had offended me.
Yeah, look, you know, I'd be lying if I said I was sorry I offended you. To be brutally honest and to be quite truthful, that was my intention. Not you personally, please. Hey, I didn't know whether you'd be offended, whether you'd think it wasn't funny, or whether you'd laugh, Paul. How would I know? We'd all come in the room together. However, to be fair and to be honest, I did intend to offend somebody. And there's a reason for that, and it's not personal, believe it or not. It wasn't I intended to offend you, Paul. What I wanted to do was I wanted to see who was on my side, who didn't really care one way or the other, and those people that I could immediately see that for some reason, and now you've told me the reason, you don't like brash and confident people, and I remind you of your neighbor, and I can't undo that, can I?
No.
Right. So, and I'm not going to try, but I do want you to understand that it wasn't personal, and there was a reason. And do you know why that reason was, Paul? Do you know why I was looking specifically for you in this audience? And believe me, Paul, you know, this is not flattery. I was looking for you because I was looking for the people who didn't like me.
Yeah, and I guess from my point of view, I don't really understand that. If you came in and, you know, you came across as a nice guy, I mean, I could have been interested in buying. So I don't really understand your logic, to be honest.
My logic was, you know what, Paul? Of all the people in the room, you're the most truthful. You would give me the most honest feedback. You would actually cut through anything I said, and you would immediately take it back into you and go, does this make sense to me? What Nick's talking about, does it make sense to me? Is it really of value to me? You're not going to laugh and go, hey, this Nick's a great storyteller, and wow, this sounds like a really great product. You're not going to be, oh, I don't really know. Maybe it is. You're going to go, you know what? I'm actually going to evaluate what this guy says based on my belief, my truth, and my understanding. And to me, Paul, you are the most important person in the room. I'm not here to persuade you. And I think this is maybe where we've kind of got out of kilter. You think that I'm trying to persuade people my viewpoint because, hey, I'm here to sell you something, right? But I'm not here to sell you something. I'm actually here to advise you on what might work for your customer. So actually, today in this meeting, I'm the voice of your customer. You know, I look around the room, there is no voice of your customer here. So I've assumed that mantle. And you know what? You tell me, do you have some customers who are really important to the organization, but that people don't really like?
Yeah, absolutely. Yep, we've got a few like that.
Have you told them to bugger off?
No, we wouldn't want to.
Right. So you're not prepared to tell them to bugger off, and you don't even like them. And yet you're prepared to tell me to bugger off, and yet I could actually be giving you some great advice and helping you, and specifically your organization, to interact in a better and more meaningful way for the people who, whether you like or whether you don't like, are going to be your valued customers. Does that make sense?
Yeah, look, to be honest, it does. But yeah, you just got off to a bad, start with me. So, it was hard to kind of envisage going forward after that.
Okay, so Paul, why don't we, with your permission, look at it this way? Say you never saw me again and I got replaced with somebody that actually you really liked and you got on well with, like, you had an immediate a rapport, you immediately went, you know what, I like working with this person. You could laugh with them. You realized they were still telling you the truth, you were still getting the best information you could possibly get.
Yeah.
Then would you be interested? Would you be interested in dealing with our company if I didn't exist in it, Paul?
Oh, look, I mean, to be honest, I think it's a bit harsh. I mean, now that you're talking, you're kind of like, you're coming across with integrity. I didn't like how you started, but I'm kind of warming to you a little bit. I must say, though, that, one of my issues is, if I'm honest, as much as I like dealing with people I like, you do worry about whether you can trust them or whether they're just pulling the wool over your eyes. So it is kind of a bit refreshing that you're kind of not taking that approach. So, I don't know. I mean, maybe I could work with you now that I'm hearing a bit more.
Do you know why I could never take that approach with you, Paul?
No.
Because you got a good gut instinct. You got a bullshit meter. And I'd say something and everybody else would buy it, and you'd be sitting there going, bullshit. This guy is trying to con me. And the moment I did that, I mean, you say you don't trust me from the start, right? But I haven't made a mistake yet. Imagine if you did trust me and then I did something to break that trust.
Yeah.
How would the company go, and how would the company's reputation go that I belong to, whose reputation, Paul, is sitting in my mouth? What a terrifying place for another person to have their company. In there's connected to madness in here, Paul. Jesus, they've taken a risk putting me in front of you, but they've done it for a reason, because they know that I'm going to tell you the truth, whether you like it or whether you don't. And they're prepared to risk losing you as a customer because I gave you the truth.
Yeah.
They don't want to put someone in front of you who you like, who you get along with, who you suddenly think's a great guy, until one day you realize, shit, I've just seen through it. Now I feel stupid. Now I feel angry. Now I'm annoyed. Now I'm going to get rid of these people. Now their business is gone. So I'm prepared to have you as a heckler, standing in the room, standing up for all the people in your organization who would back you, because you know what? They trust you, Paul, because you're a smart guy, you have integrity, and you're not frightened to stand up and say your piece. You're not frightened. And guess what? You've just met someone who's smart, who has integrity, who understands what your clients need, who isn't frightened to get up in front of you, Paul, take a risk of losing the company and the opportunity just because, you know what? I'm not scared to tell you the truth. How do you think our reputation, and how do you think our relationship, yours and my relationship, and your company and my company's relationship would go based on this truth?
Oh, I think it would go really well, to be honest. Now that I understand this, and I think the other thing too is that I reckon most salespeople would come into the room like you've described, and wouldn't be prepared to take on people like me. They'd go for the easy option and focus on those that are already happy and already converted, and would think that the job is done. But I'm the sort of guy, if if you can sort of get through the barriers and show me the value that you can provide me, I'm going to be one of your most loyal clients long term. So, yeah, I mean, good on you for doing what most salespeople wouldn't do.
No, because most people are going to sell you the product. They're going to go, hey, Paul, hey, I hear you need a new website and you need to reach 100,000 people on a daily basis, and you want to be able to send an email out to them, and you want them all to love you, and you want to look cool, and you want to have lots of photos and lots of videos. And Jesus, man, you got some great people, and the CEO wants to get up there and he wants to tell everybody what great company you've got. And you know what? We can do that for you. Not only that, we can do it at a cost that nobody else can do. We're an agile and we use open source software. So you can always take this website and take it somewhere else, Paul. You're safe with us. You're not wedded to us. We don't lock you into a contract, right? I could have done all that shit, Paul, and you would have bought it. I'm not here to sell you, Paul. Remember how this conversation started out when I said to you, I tell people how to sell to investors, and they don't buy your crappy little product. They buy you.
Yeah.
And I hope through a very wordy and mouthy way, I've shown you how that works.
Yeah, I think that's brilliant. And just to close off, though, a question related to that I want to ask you, and that is taking the startup environment. When you've got the startup people are young and don't have a lot of experience, how do you see them as opposed to those that maybe, got a few more miles on the clock, say like someone like me or that, like, because you said before, it's about the person and knowing that they are going to be able to get through whatever problems. I mean, in the media, we always hear about how startups, it's a 22-year-old or a 23-year-old or whatever, know, and you're like, well, what experience do they have? What would they know about dealing with difficult things? And just to add a comment there, I know one of New Zealand's richest men. I've spoken to him about some of his investments, and he talked about one of them, how the young guy ended up having a breakdown. There's a group of them, and one of them had a mental breakdown. But I just wonder. I've talked to an American investor about this sort of scenario, and his attitude was, well, what we do is we surround them with more experienced people to be, their sounding boards and really help them. But they're not there day to day. So how do you reconcile that? I mean, it just, from my point of view, it just seems like if I had the choice between dealing with someone who is young, not a lot of experience, and then someone that's older and has done a lot and had a few things not go their way, to me, the better person to choose would be the older one. But just before I open up for you to answer, in World War II, I think the average age of a soldier was 26. American soldier was 26. In Vietnam, it was 18. And the reason that they go for young people is they're more fearless. They are less aware of their.
They have less to lose, right?
Yeah, they don't think so much about the big picture and their fragile life, whereas someone older tends to be. So with a young person, I kind of think, well, they're kind of like, they don't know, they're very naive, so they don't really know what they're getting themselves into, which can, to a point, be a good thing. So definitely full of lots of ideas, but they don't have the backbone that someone else that's older would have. So just off topic a little bit, but what's your thoughts on that, the comparison between the two?
Being nearly 70 and watching my whatever it is dwindle, my finances, especially if you own a house or property in Wellington, that was a 20% hit. You never saw, well, you did see it going, but there you go. That's a 20% hit straight away. And so I guess, the mistake is hindsight's a great vision, right? You go, oh, well, in hindsight, if 20/20 vision in hindsight. So can I be rude, Paul? Can I throw you a hand grenade?
Yeah, why not?
You made a fatal mistake, a fatal flaw in your thinking.
Yeah.
And the fatal flaw in your thinking is that just because you get older and wiser doesn't mean that you don't make mistakes. In fact, that's
Oh, no.
No, not that. The inverse of that. Generally, as you get older and wiser, people give you a bigger responsibility. So when you make a mistake, it's huge. I mean, talking huge. So I remember there was a guy in IBM or something who was involved in he got split off and got set up into this business because IBM was looking to break itself up into smaller companies so that each one would be in competition with each other. And, that whole great thing, if you're cornflakes and you own the 80% of the market, you're never going to get any bigger. So you become XYZ flakes and you go into competition with yourself and you pick up another 5%. And now you're 85% of the market. So this guy, they invested, I think, tens of millions in this project they put him in charge of.
Yeah.
And the project fell over. And this was going back a long time ago. And they were down tens of millions of dollars. And the guy walked into the CEO's office and he said, "Here's my resignation." And the CEO said to him, "Why are you resigning?" And he said, "I've just cost the company tens of millions of dollars through my mistakes." And the CEO said to him, "There's no way I'm going to accept your resignation." He said, "We've just invented," I think it was like $10 million. He said, "We've just invested $10 million into your education. So tell me, are you going to make that mistake again?" And the guy went, "Of course not." He said, "Right, we'll get back to work then." And so in answer to your question, every mistake is relevant to where we stand. And we always start off at a certain level and we work up to the next one. So yes, the guy who's never done it before and is 22 years old and has had a great idea, we do know certain things about him. We know he's passionate. We know he's prepared to work 27 hours a day for no money and live on instant noodles for a year. We know he's got no friends except for the people he works with. We know he's probably not a very good judge of character. We know the first thing he's going to do is going to give away 2/3 of his company to the first person who says, "I'll give you 10 grand to help you." We know that one for a fact. So the first thing we should probably do is isolate him from these people because they're not going to be helpful to him. Yeah. So my job as an investor is not necessarily just to surround you, Paul, with people who are wiser, more efficient, know more about the market, can help you overcome whatever. My first job is to shield you from the people who are not going to be helpful to you. That's my first job, just simply to shield you.
Yeah.
And so you're going to make mistakes. And sometimes they are going to overwhelm you. And it doesn't matter whether you're running a major IBM segment or whether you're running a 17-month-old startup. The mistake is only relevant to your experience and position. And so when I take people through investment pitches, my investment pitch for a startup company looking to get $20,000 to stay afloat for the next 6 months of instant noodles, compared to the person who's looking to secure $1 million or more in a New Zealand market, which $1 million has some gravitas. California, if you went for $1 million, they probably wouldn't pay you any attention and wouldn't think you were real. So everything about the pitch between, I've been running for 15 months and we've got an annual turnover now of break even, and we're looking to get some investment to take us into the next market space where we've got 3 times the opportunity and 15 times the opportunity to increase our returns, given the opportunities in a bigger market with more money. So for the same amount of time invested, the return is 15 times greater. That's a better thing to invest in, right? You still step into the room, and the people in the room with $1 million are still looking at you, Pauline, going, yeah, but you only run a company that just breaks even at the moment. Why should we invest $1 million? And then the day you go to take your company for a $15 million investment over your $1 million investment, because, hey, you're 3 or 5 years into the business now and you're really successful and you've identified a bigger opportunity, you still go into that group of investors and they still look at you as someone who runs a $5 million company. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It doesn't matter who you are. You're always pitching to somebody who has more money, more time, more experience, more to lose than you do. You never get past that. No matter how much up the rung you get, you always get there. When you require somebody else's initiative, help, or market, you're always beholden to them. Doesn't matter who you are.
Yeah, so true. So true. All right, Nick. Well, I'm just conscious. This has been a big conversation. I could talk about it for ages. And we're getting slightly off topic there. But look, thank you so much for taking your time today to come back and share your wisdom about sales. I think it's something that so often we neglect. We don't appreciate the importance of it as much as we should. So hopefully with this podcast, we can shine a little bit more light on it and give people a little bit more inspiration to help them in their sales journey. So thank you so much for your time.
No, thank you. And I look forward to talking again.